And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, February 20th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the Dodgers. They will be opening up their spring training today against the Chicago Cubs. So we'll kind of talk about them, their road to repeating as champions, who are the biggest threats, talk about their offseason, and, you know, kind of the outcry, I guess, or the outspoken, talking about, the Dodgers and their spending, the discontent with that. So we'll get into all that. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Now, I've said it all along, I think Stafford's going to stay with the Rams, but I wanted to talk about what the Rams' asking price is for teams if they want Stafford. What would teams have to give up to get Stafford? So we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Knicks getting reinforcements back. Now that we're in the second half of the season. Well, really, it's not really the second half. It's more of like we're at the 3/4 of the way there, the 3/4 of the season. There's only a quarter of the season left, really, because the All-Star break isn't really the midway point. It's a little bit after that. So we'll talk about that as well. We'll get into Kevin Durant and why he didn't want to go back to Golden State, because supposedly, the Suns and the Warriors were working on a trade, and Durant shut that down. So we'll get into that. And then the final part of the show, we'll talk about the Chargers being the team that will host a game in Brazil next season and who they could potentially match up against in that. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Dodgers and their road to a potential repeat as champions and who are the biggest threats. So they will be playing the Cubs today. We have baseball, which is great to have that sport back. And, the Dodgers, they went out and had another good offseason. They re-signed some guys. They re-signed Teoscar Hernandez. They got him back. They also brought back Clayton Kershaw as well. They have a ton of pitching depth. Now, the biggest move of the offseason for them was getting Roki Sasaki, the other Japanese pitcher. So now they have him. They have Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who will be pitching today. And eventually Shohei Ohtani will join that rotation. And also you have to add in, they brought in Blake Snell as well. Tyler Glass now coming back from injury. So the Dodgers, once again, are loaded. And you could say that this team is better than the team that won the championship last year because of the pitching depth. And, of course, you still have Ohtani. You still got Freddie Freeman. And you still got Mookie Betts at the top of that lineup. They also did bring in Michael Conforto as well to be another outfield piece out there. So I guess he's kind of the Jason Hayward replacement, because I don't think Jason Hayward's on the team. But, and Conforto's a lefty bat. I mean, in that lineup, I guess that's a good bat to have. So, yeah, no, this team is loaded. And, it's definitely going to be very hard to repeat because no team has done it in a long time in baseball. But if there's any team that could do it, it's this team. It's definitely this team. Now, I think the National League is a tougher path than the American League. When you look at the American League side, there's not a lot of elite teams. I wouldn't say there's a lot of elite teams in the National League either, but there's, there are teams that pose a threat to the Dodgers. I think the Padres, starting off with their own division, I think the Padres, some players said that when the Dodgers said that was the World Series, basically, was when they matched up against the Padres, because the Padres had them. and they came up a little bit short. But you figure as long as they don't sell off pieces, because you're hearing that Dylan Cease could be traded, you're hearing that Michael King could be traded. So if that's the case, then I'd be out on the Padres. But as of right now, the way things are, and also they were looking to maybe trade Luis Arias too. But if the Padres stay together, they're going to pose a threat to the Dodgers. And then you also have to take a look at the Diamondbacks. They have a pretty good lineup, but now they also added Corbin Burnes to that rotation. So you have him, you have Zach Gallen, you have Merrill Kelly. Maybe they get a bounce back year from Jordan Montgomery. So they got a lot of pitching. So they're another team that could pose a threat to them as well. I don't really look at the Central. Now, I know we're going to see the Cubs today. And the Cubs are kind of an interesting team because, they traded Bellinger to the Yankees, but then they trade for Kyle Tucker. So what are they trying to do? And could Kyle Tucker potentially be a guy that gets moved at the deadline if the Cubs are out of it? But the Cubs are trying to, turn this thing around. It's been a while since they've been a threat in the National League. And, it looked like they were going to make the playoffs. I think it's now, it was 2 years ago now. And then they just flat out missed the playoffs. Because I remember doing the baseball show, and I was basically guaranteeing the Cubs were going to make the playoffs, and then they ended up just collapsing at the very end and missing out, and then they missed out on the playoffs last year. So, we'll see what they do this year, but I'm not really expecting that much. I mean, maybe they're in the mix for the wild card. I mean, the division is not a gauntlet, so you never know. But I think most people would probably still look at the Brewers as the best team. So we'll see how it goes for them. But I don't really look at any team in the Central as being a threat to the Dodgers. And then you look at the National League East. You got the Braves, you got the Mets, and you got the Phillies. And, I think that the Mets and the Phillies are going to be battling it out for second place in the division. But I think a healthy Braves squad this year, I think that should be the team that wins the National League East. That's just my opinion. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close. I like the Mets lineup a lot. More so at the top. I mean, at the bottom, that's kind of where you maybe have some concerns. But I think their lineup is going to be very good. The problem I have with the Mets is their starting rotation. And many people have that same issue with them, is the rotation. How is that going to do? I think the bullpen's going to be better. But, if they have to go out and trade for someone, maybe they do that when we get to the trade deadline. The Phillies, their guys are starting to get older lineup-wise. I mean, you still got two very good pitchers at the top of the rotation in Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. So, they're going to be a threat. And then the Braves, you get Ronald Acuna back. And, hopefully, they put together a better season. But we'll see. And I know there's a lot of complaints. I was talking about this before with the Dodgers spending. And Rob Manfred, the commissioner, commented on it recently. And he said everything that they're doing is within the rules. And he's right. Now, I'll be honest. I didn't realize that you could defer money. When they signed Ohtani and, they deferred all that money in his contract, I did not realize you could do that. But you can. You can. And, if they're able to do that and spend, and it's within the rules, can't really complain about it. The thing I worry about, and many people in the media are talking about this, is, owners are not happy about it. More specifically, I guess the smaller market teams are not happy about it. So, when this CBA is up, after 2026, odds are there's going to be a work stoppage. And that is really going to hurt the sport. And I'm not looking forward to that. And look, I get it. It's annoying. I think the most annoying thing is not that the Dodgers are getting these players. It's just the fact that, you got Roki Sasaki meeting with all these teams, and then you're hearing, he might not want to go to a big market team, or, he might be looking to go somewhere other than the Dodgers. And then he ultimately just ends up signing with the Dodgers. And it was the same thing with Yamamoto. Yamamoto meets with all these teams just to end up going to the Dodgers. Now, obviously, I guess it's bad business because, you narrow it down to one team, and it's like, well, now you don't get a chance to see what the other teams could offer. But if your intent is to just join the Dodgers, why are you wasting all these other teams' time? That's the one thing that annoys me. Just sign with the Dodgers then. I don't know. That's just how I look at that. But they are going to be really good. And you look at last year, like I said, they dealt with injuries to their pitching staff. It was basically Jack Flaherty, Yamamoto, Walker Buehler. That was basically it. And then they would do a bullpen game. Now you got all these guys coming back. Now I think there's some concern because some of these guys could get hurt again. It's very possible. Some of these guys could maybe be ineffective. But I don't think it's really going to matter. I think this team could be getting back to the World Series again. Because they're just loaded from top to bottom. And you also signed Tanner Scott. I forgot to bring him up. Lefty reliever. We'll see how it goes. But we had no teams that won over 100 games last year. I think we're going to have at least a couple. And they're definitely going to be one of those teams. But let me know what you guys think about the Dodgers for this upcoming season. Like I said, they will be playing the Cubs. I think it's 3:05 Eastern time today. So it will be, the matchup is going to be actually Yamamoto, like I said, against former Yankee pitcher who was involved in the Cody Bellinger trade, Cody Poteet. So yeah, 3:05 Eastern time. I'll see if I'll be able to tune in and watch it. I don't know if they have the lineup set yet. It might be too early. But yeah, no, it doesn't appear. Yeah, no lineup announced yet. But I figure there's going to be some starters mixed in. But baseball is back, so get excited for that. But if you're one of those people that just thinks the season's over before it started because you think the Dodgers are going to win, well, that's your opinion. I'm still going to try to enjoy the season. So we are going to take our first break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about Matthew Stafford and the trade speculation, all that, what the Rams are asking for if they were to deal Matthew Stafford, and if you're a team that needs a quarterback, should you do it? So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about Matthew Stafford and the Rams and, what the Rams' asking price is. And if you're a team that needs a quarterback, would you give up, a first-round pick, basically, is what the Rams are asking for. And I got to be honest, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I think it all depends on the situation. Like, I think if you're a team like the Giants and, you're desperate, but you kind of need, when you have a top 3 pick, I don't think I'm willing to do it. If you have a top 3 pick, I know it kind of sounded like I was leaning towards, yeah, you do it. I don't think they should. I think the Giants should still try to get Stafford, but I think you have to give up, a couple of seconds maybe, something like that. I'm not giving up the number 3 overall pick because it seems like that's, like I said, what the Rams want. They want first round picks. Now, I was thinking maybe if you're the Browns, because, the Browns, they do have a roster that won 11 games in 2023 with 5 different starting quarterbacks. So if they were to do that, I guess, maybe that would make sense. But at the same time, Stafford's looking for a new contract. And you already have Deshaun Watson's contract on the books. And then you're going to take Matthew Stafford in and give him what he wants. So you could also look at it from that perspective. Because really, what this comes down to is money. Stafford wants a new deal. And I've said it all along, and I said it once again when we started off the show here today. I think he's going to stay with the Rams. I do believe that. I believe that they are going to figure it out. I would hope they're going to figure it out. But you also have Stafford's wife on her podcast saying that she's open to relocating their family. So you never know. You never know. But I really do believe that he's going to stay. But to give up a first-round pick. Maybe, if you're the Steelers, because you have a late first. Because, giving up a top 5 pick for, and that's the other thing, too. Stafford's not, spring chicken. He's 37 years old. Now, I think he could still play at a high level, but, you're giving up that kind of an asset for an aging quarterback. That's the other thing, too. But the Steelers, when you're a team like the Steelers and you're constantly picking in, the 20s because, you have these winning seasons, but you don't go anywhere in the playoffs, maybe you do it. And I think Stafford, although he's a little bit older, I think he'd be an upgrade over what they had last year. Now, are they going to bring back Justin Fields? If the price is right, now you're hearing that the Jets might have interest in him. Pair him back up with Garrett Wilson. But I do feel like Justin Fields makes the most sense to go back to Pittsburgh. Because we also did talk about this in our production meeting too. Unless the Jets blow Fields away and they give him a much better offer than the Steelers do, wouldn't you rather just go back to Pittsburgh? With Pittsburgh, you know what you're getting. I know that Steeler fans are complaining about them, but there is some stability there. Not some, but there is stability there. With the Jets, it's the opposite. And especially looking at their situation now where you have a first-time head coach and a first-time GM. Now, I really hope that Aaron Glenn works out. I hope he ends up being the guy. It would be a great story. But, again, unless the money is more than what the Steelers are willing to offer, by a lot, I'm staying in Pittsburgh. And the Steelers, you were hearing so many different things, so many different quarterbacks. Deshaun Elliott, one of their safeties, was trash-talking Aaron Rodgers. But there was a picture of them, I guess they were in the same area, which I think was legit. So now it's like, oh, well, could Aaron Rodgers be going to Pittsburgh? Then you hear some rumors about Daniel Jones potentially going to Pittsburgh. And Steeler fans are losing their mind over that. You got Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold. So who knows who's going to be playing quarterback for the Steelers next year? Could be Kyle Allen. No. But I would say the Steelers, and if you look at the other teams that need quarterbacks. I mean, it'd be crazy if the Vikings somehow were to, you know, dip their toes into this and trade for Stafford because, they got a draft pick in the 20s. And, I mean, you put Stafford on that team with Justin Jefferson and Addison, Hawkinson. I mean, that defense and the division that he knows well in a dome, I mean, that it's not going to happen. But, and I don't know if, Sean McVay is trying to, trade his quarterback to a former ally in Kevin O'Connell. So, yeah, I just think Stafford is going to end up staying. And, I mean, the thing that scares me with the Giants is I did say that they're desperate, so they could do that. But I don't think you should. I don't think you should. You try to lower the price a little bit, give him a couple of seconds, I'm down for that. But I think with this number 3 overall pick, I think, I really do think that you should take the best player available, and then you try to maybe trade back into the late first round or in the second, and you take and then you take a quarterback. And then maybe you sign a veteran. Like, if they sign Russell Wilson, all right, so be it. But at least, like, if you have a quarterback that sits behind him, and then maybe you bring in 2 quarterbacks. You bring in a Russell Wilson and you bring in someone else, and that someone else ends up being the backup, and then the quarterback you drafted ends up being the 3rd string. That's how I see it. Now, it's easier said than done, but, that's how I feel. But like I said, I would love Stafford if he came to the Giants. I would be back in. I'd be like, all right, well, at least they are trying to be competitive this year. But I want to see them take the best player available. Or, maybe you sign a veteran and then, if you take the quarterback, whether it's Cam Ward or if it's Shedeur Sanders, and they sit, for a year, I guess I'm okay with that too. But I just think there are some elite level players in this draft that you could get with the 3rd pick. And, not everyone is super high on these quarterbacks. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be good, but there's no, like I've said before, there's no Andrew Luck where this guy is going to start day 1. So if that's the case, maybe you take either Travis Hunter or McMillan, or you take Abdul Carter, who many people say is the best player in the draft. I don't know. We'll see. We got some time before the draft. And then you also got the Titans with the number 1 overall pick. But I don't know if they're looking to trade that. Now, what the Rams would do is they would get your first round pick. Now, if it's, the Giants or, whoever's ahead of them, the Browns and the Titans, they would take that pick and they would just trade down and get more assets. And then the crazy thing is, what would end up happening is there's some rumors that if they were to trade Stafford, they would bring in Aaron Rodgers. Now, that would make sense for Aaron Rodgers because then you'd be going into a good situation with a good head coach, and they got a rising star in Puka Nacua. He's already a star, but, and then you got Kyron Williams, got a good defense. The offensive line I'd worry about a little bit because they dealt with a lot of injuries last year in that area. So that would make sense for Aaron Rodgers. But for me, it wouldn't make sense for the Rams. Because Stafford's younger, and you literally just got you got pretty close to going on another Super Bowl run with him. So why pull the plug again? Unless it comes down to the contract. And Rodgers played through a lot of injuries last year. So I don't. If that happened, that would be crazy. But I think it's It's going to be Stafford. Stafford is going to be behind center for the Rams. I think the price for Stafford, for some of these teams, it's too much. I wouldn't necessarily do it. But maybe, like a team like the Steelers, like I said, you're picking in the late 20s. If the Rams are willing to take that first round pick, I'd say you do it. But that's just me. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Stafford is going to get traded? Do you think he's going to stay? We'll see what happens. So we are going to take our next break. Before we take our next break, I always do this. I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we're going to talk some basketball, back-to-back basketball segments in the third and fourth segments coming up. But we'll start off by talking about the Knicks. So reinforcements could be on the way for this team. So we'll talk about the impact of that when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Knicks. They begin their second half tonight. They will be playing. They're playing the Bulls tonight. A little Seinfeld reference. The Knicks are playing the Bulls tonight. And reinforcements could be on the way. OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson both back in practice, which is very encouraging. Now, Mitchell Robinson hasn't played the whole year, had off-season surgery. I think it's on his ankle. So yeah, he hasn't played the whole year. OG Anunoby's been out with a foot sprain, but they should be getting him back as well, and that's huge. That's huge, getting these guys back. With OG Anunoby, I don't know the record off the top of my head, but the record with OG Anunoby when he's in the lineup since the Knicks acquired him last season is really good. It's really good. The Knicks really don't lose when they have him. And with Mitchell Robinson, he's not a guy that's known as a scorer. And he's not very good at free throws. But he's another big body that you get back in this lineup, and it just lengthens it out. And, one of the guys that, I guess he would be coming off the bench. But, maybe on certain nights, you have him at the 5 and you have, Karl Anthony Towns at the 4. You could do that. And, one of these guys could go to the bench. Maybe you put, I don't know if they would want to do this, but you put Josh Hart on the bench, lengthen out the bench. Because that was the biggest concern going into the season, was the bench. Because, I mean, they had to trade DiVincenzo and Randall for Karl Anthony Towns. And Karl Anthony Towns has been unbelievable this year for the Knicks. And he was an all-star this year. You had him and Brunson being all-star starters, which, I guess you would have liked to have seen them, play together, in a full game. See that on display. But we got this new tournament format. But rightfully deserved for both players. But yeah, the bench was a concern. But you're getting minutes from campaign, and Deuce McBride's been dealing with injuries, but you figure you're gonna be getting him back. But this is big news, And Mitchell Robinson's a guy that plays defense, can get rebounds, and that's what they need. And that's what they're gonna need when they match up against the Celtics. Now, I still think the Celtics are the better team, and until the Knicks can show that they could beat them, that's how it's going to be. So far, the Knicks are 0-2 against them this year. They got blown out, the first game against them, and then, kind of the same thing in the second contest. Not as bad as the first one, but still, if the Knicks want to be looked at as a title contender, you got to be able to beat these teams. And, the Celtics are going to be a team that's going to be standing in their way. And so far, they have not delivered when they played against them. So, but I still think this is a very good team. And hopefully, they can take it a step further. Because I would have loved to have seen them in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But it's just the injuries really caught up to them. And injuries are kind of a problem this year. I mean, Josh Hart is going to be dealing with something in his knee for really the rest of the year. And OG Anunoby is on the way back, but who's to say he doesn't get hurt again? Same thing with Mitchell Robinson. Problem with him is he can't stay on the court. I'm so used to saying he can't stay on the field, but now that we're talking other sports, he can't stay on the court. So, and hopefully he can, because he is important. And, he was a guy that could have possibly got traded. But the Knicks held on to him. And he's going to be an important player in the second half. So, and they play the Bulls tonight. And the Bulls, right now, not having a great year. Their record on the season, they're 22-33. So, I mean, I think the Knicks should win. They're at home tonight. Then again, I said the Lakers should win last night, and they ended up losing by 3. And LeBron actually ended up playing last night. So he actually, it seemed like he wasn't going to play, but he did end up playing. He had 26 points. Luka had a rough night. He was 5 for 18 from the field, 1 for 9 from 3, and he had 6 turnovers, and the Lakers ended up losing, which I thought they should be able to beat the Hornets, but that was not the case. I think the Knicks should win tonight. They're 12-point favorites. But looking at the stats for OG Anunoby on the season, has played in 49 games. He averages 36.3 minutes. I mean, the starters have, played a lot. I mean, you got Brunson's averaging 35 minutes a game. Karl Anthony Towns is averaging 35 minutes a game as well. 38 minutes for Bridges, 36 for Anunoby, 37 for Josh Hart. Anunoby is averaging 16.4 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 2 assists. But he's an important player. He is a very important player. And let me see and last year with the Knicks, in his time with the Knicks after he was traded from Toronto, averaged around the same 15 points per game. Mitchell Robinson, like I said, hasn't played at all, but getting him back is huge. And right now, the Knicks, they are currently in the 3rd seed. They're 3.5 games back of the Celtics. So, we talk about the Celtics and how, right now they are the better team than the Knicks, but, the Knicks are right behind them. And then Cleveland, they're 8 games behind. Cleveland's 44-10 on the year, but a lot of people really aren't buying into Cleveland. They think, that other shoe is going to drop at some point. But give him credit. So I think Kenny Atkinson is the coach now, and, he was done wrong in Brooklyn when, KD, Kyrie, and Harden were all there. They got rid of him. But he's a good coach. He's a good coach. Anthony in the chat says, honestly, I don't think the Lakers are as good as the rankings say they are. I think they're going to be a play-in team by the end of the season. I mean, look, they've lost 2 straight games now. One of them was to the Jazz, and now they just lost to the Hornets last night. So, and the other thing, too, is, I mean, Luka really hasn't gotten it going yet. I mean, you would think once he gets hot, this team maybe could kick it into another gear. They're still in a good spot right now, but, yeah, I mean, they got to start playing better. So, we'll see how it goes. But, for the Knicks, they're in a good spot. I mean, they are in a better spot than the Lakers. Right now, they're the 3rd seed in the conference. In the Eastern Conference. I like the Knicks to make it to at least the second round again, but, it depends. If they're going to match up against the Celtics in the second round, I mean, I would probably lean towards taking the Celtics in a 7-game series. But, we'll see. Now, you get Mitchell Robinson back, you get OG back. This team is basically complete. How are they going to look? And, I'm excited to see it. It should be fun. Anthony says, how close are the playing teams in terms of record in both conference? Play-in. Or the playing teams in terms of record. So, I mean, if you look at the Eastern Conference, the Magic are 27-29. They're the 7th seed. The Hawks are 26-29. The Heat are 25-28. And the Bulls are 22-33. So I said the Bulls are not having a good year. Well, technically, they would be a playoff team if the playoffs ended today. Or the playoffs started today. They would be a play-in team. I feel like it's always the Heat and the Bulls playing in the play-in. And then you look at the Western Conference. I mean, it's better than the Eastern Conference because all the teams that are in the play-in are over 500. So the Timberwolves, they're 31-25. The Mavericks are 30-26. The Kings are 28-27, and the Warriors are 28-27. And then you got the Suns, who are on the outside looking in. They're 26-28. And the Spurs, they're 23-29. I was hoping for a better year out of the Spurs. Chris Paul being there, Wemby, second season. They did trade for De'Aaron Fox, so they really got to go on a run to try to, squeak in, and we'll see if they can. But, yeah, so the Knicks, they start tonight. A handful of teams will be playing tonight. So, I'll be locked in for it. And, we'll see what they do against the Bulls. I mean, I think they should win. But, last night, like I said, I had the Lakers winning, and they ended up losing. And again, LeBron was playing. And they still lost. So, that's my thoughts on the Knicks. Reinforcements on the way. Very encouraging. Good news. And we are going to take our next break now. And then when we come back, we'll talk more basketball, actually. We're going to talk about Kevin Durant and talk about his reasoning behind, shutting down a potential trade that would send him back to Golden State and reunite with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr. And I wanted to give you my thoughts on that because I thought it was interesting. And, and Kevin Durant had a lot of success there, but he didn't want to go back. He did not want to go back. So we will get into that conversation when we return from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Kevin Durant and his comments on why he kind of shut down a trade that would send him back to Golden State. So, before the trade deadline, before the Warriors got Jimmy Butler, they were trying to get Kevin Durant back. And it looked like that they were going to end up getting a deal done, but then Kevin Durant kind of shut that down, and then the Warriors had to pivot, and ultimately they acquired Jimmy Butler. And yeah, it was reported that Durant really had no interest in going back to Golden State. The trade fell through, and like I said, the Warriors, then they quickly pivoted and they got Jimmy Butler. So this is what Durant said. People talk crazy about me all the time. This is via ESPN. People talk crazy about me all the time. That's not the reason why I didn't want to come back. I just didn't want to get traded midway through the season. It was nothing against my time with the Warriors, or I heard because I don't like Draymond. At the end of the day, I just didn't want to move, and I wanted to see it through with my team in Phoenix and see what we could do the rest of the season. So I'm glad I'm still there. And then Steve Kerr said, I don't blame Kevin one bit for not wanting to rerun things here. He took so much blank for like, oh, you're jumping on the bandwagon? And this is, back when he signed with Golden State as a free agent in 2016. And, I mean, it's almost 10 years ago that happened. Next summer, it's going to be 10 years since that happened. I remember sitting at my kitchen table. It was on the 4th of July when we got the news. And, again, not a super fan when it comes to the NBA, but still, I follow it. And, and I like Durant. I mean, now time has passed, obviously, with the Golden State stuff, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, how could he do this? And, they won 2 championships, and they should have won 3. If Durant doesn't get hurt, if Clay doesn't get hurt, if Golden State does not get banged up in that finals against Toronto, they win that. But whatever the case may be, it happened. And, so then Steve Kerr finished it off by saying, so why would he want to face all that BS again? I mean, I feel like now it wouldn't be... I feel like it wouldn't be as bad had he gone back, because the Warriors are not the same team. You're not going back to, prime Steph and prime Clay and prime Draymond. You're going back to an older Steph Curry, who, I mean, is still playing really well at a high level. Draymond is not the same player, but, he's still there. Look, Draymond is a good player, and he is a champion, but, I mean, when comparing Steph Curry and Draymond Green, I mean, there is no comparison. And there's no Clay there. There's no Clay, there's no Andre Iguodala, there's no Sean Livingston, there's none of those guys on that team. They got a younger team. So, I don't think it would be as bad. And especially because, when you look at the standings right now, I mean, the Warriors are the 10th seed, and the Suns are on the outside looking in. Now, do I believe Kevin Durant? I guess maybe in some aspects. But I do think that he's not telling us the whole truth. I do think, he says, people say it's because him and Draymond don't get along. I still think that might be a reason why. And, Kevin Durant is someone that, things do get under his skin. He does reply to people on social media. He even replied to a DM that one of my friends sent him. And you could say I'm fibbing here, but I'm telling the truth. I was going to say cap, but, am I really going to say, well, I already said it. You may think that I'm lying, but No, he actually did answer a DM that my friend sent him. Because my friend was kind of trolling, I guess, and Durant responded to him. Then they started talking about 2K. And Kevin Durant was talking about, destroying my friend in 2K. And I will have to see if I can get the screenshots of the messages at some point. Because if someone calls me out and says I'm lying, well, I'm going to have to get the receipts, if you will. But, yeah, I just think that has to be it. I do also agree with that, but no, he wants to see it out with the Suns. All right. But what have they accomplished? Last year, early exit, I think they got swept. Who did they play in the first round last year? Was it Minnesota? Yeah, it was Minnesota. They swept them. And now you're on the outside looking in. Really has not gone Kevin Durant's way the last couple of stops for him. Go to Brooklyn, and really their best chance was that year that, if his foot was a little bit smaller, they beat the Bucks. And they move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then everything fell apart. And then he ends up getting traded to Phoenix. They get Bradley Beal. But, it's been a disappointment. The Suns are not that deep of a team. So, yeah, you could say you want to see it through, but the Suns, even if they get into the play-in, are you really going to expect them to do anything? I don't think so. And it's not like I think, the 3 stars they have on their team are... I don't think Bradley Beal is having that good of a season, but, you need more than just 3 guys or 3 stars. They can only do so much. And the Suns, they had a chance. Their best chance was when you had Chris Paul, you had Devin Booker, you had Mikal Bridges, you had DeAndre Ayton. That year, that was their chance right there. And they lost to Giannis and the Bucks. And it's gone downhill since then. Maybe, the Suns surprise us here in the second half, but I don't see it. I don't see it. I definitely could see at some point Kevin Durant is finishing his career elsewhere. You know where he would fit? I'm just throwing this out there. What if he went back to the Thunder? You bookend your career, you go back to OKC. What if he did that? Because right now, then you could say, well, now you're going back to the Thunder, and they're really good. But I don't know. I just thought I did think about that recently. Like, what if he just went back to OKC? But I don't think we're getting that. We're not getting that LeBron returning to Cleveland for Kevin Durant. If we do that, that would be that'd be cool. But I think he is going to ultimately end up playing elsewhere. And I think if you're a team that is really trying to, take that next step, Kevin Durant could be that missing piece. Because he could still play. It's just he's not like what he wants. He's not in his prime anymore. He's not a guy that's going to, carry your whole team. He needs help. That's for a lot of these guys. That's for Steph Curry. That's for LeBron James. They need, they need surrounding pieces around them. And right now, when you look at the Suns and you look at Golden State, the Lakers are, the 5th seed right now, but, the Warriors did go on and get Jimmy Butler, but the Suns, you're on the outside looking in. You got, Bradley Beal, Booker, and KD. And Suns fans got to be losing it over that. So, we'll see. We'll see how this second half goes for Kevin Durant. But what do you guys think? Should he have accepted the trade to Golden State? Do you agree with his decision, or how do you feel about it? I I mean, I guess if he wants to see it out with the Suns, okay. But I mean, if you still want to win, and I think going back to Golden State, I mean, Steph Curry's one of the best players that he's ever played with, and they worked so well together. I mean, I don't know if they got Kevin Durant, if the Warriors are, all the way back and going on to win a title. I mean, I think I would like a Kevin Durant to the Warriors move better than, Jimmy Butler going there. But, I don't know if they'd be making a deep playoff run. I think you'd still need more to add to that team. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our final break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will discuss the Chargers. So the Chargers, they will be hosting the game in Brazil next season. But now we got to figure out, or the NFL has to figure out, who should they play? Who should they play next season? And I think this game would take place in the opener again, like last season. So I'm curious to see who they end up picking. But we'll discuss the possibilities. I'll give you my thoughts on the game in Brazil. So, yeah, we'll get into all that when we come back from our final break of the show. So, for one final time today, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Chargers. They will be hosting. So it is confirmed that they will be playing in Brazil Week 1. So this will be the night after the opener, when the Eagles open up at home. So these are the opponents. Now it's not going to be the Eagles. The Eagles are a home opponent because they'll be hosting. They'll be raising the banner that night. You also got a couple of other teams, the Steelers and the Colts. They'll be playing international games, so maybe you count them out. So that would leave the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Texans, the Commanders, and the Vikings. So I don't think it's going to be the Chiefs. Now, I think if you want to see Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes square off, and that'd be quite the way to start off, the NFL season. Having the Chiefs in Brazil, but I don't know. Probably a different team. I would say maybe the Texans. The Texans or the Broncos. Bo Nix. They played that Thursday night game. That was a good game. Chargers came back and won that. The Texans really brought it to the Chargers and kind of exposed the Chargers in the playoff game in the wild card round. But you could potentially do that. The Vikings, maybe. I feel like you want the matchup to be good. I feel like, because the other options, really every option other than the Raiders and, like I said, the Eagles, they're going to be playing in their home opener, raising the banner. The Colts and Steelers, not likely. But Chiefs, I said, probably not going to happen. But Broncos, Texans, Commanders, or the Vikings, they were all playoff teams. So I think you might want to go that way. Now, maybe with the Raiders, depending on what they do at quarterback, if they bring in a veteran quarterback and, Pete Carroll is now the head coach and, Tom Brady being a part-time owner, that could also, be intriguing, I guess. But I feel like right now I would lean towards taking one of these playoff teams. And maybe you do a divisional opponent or same conference. Because, I don't know, I guess maybe because last year, you had the Packers and the Eagles playing against each other. Maybe you keep it within the same conference. You got the Broncos and the Texans. Maybe you choose one of them. It's possible. And then, these are the other international games. So these are the home teams. So the Jaguars are going to be a home team. The Jets are going to be a home team. The Browns are going to be a home team. The Colts. This game's going to be in Berlin with the Colts. The other three are going to be in London. The Steelers are going to be another home team, and then you got the Dolphins as well that are going to be a home team. So, yeah, no, and Justin Herbert hopefully has better weapons at that point. That's something that they're going to need to address is, getting him, better receivers to go along with Ladd McConkey. Because, you have him, but you're also going to need to maybe add, one or two more. And then on top of that, you need a better running game, too. Because I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to come back. So, we'll see how it goes. But, you hope the conditions are better. Because there was definitely a lot of complaining when it came to the field conditions and how it was slippery. And, hopefully they do a better job at, prepping the field. Because you had, and not that this was the reason for that, but, Jordan Love got hurt last year, and many people were like, oh, it's because of the field conditions. Well, it was because of how he was tackled. But yeah, players from both the Eagles and Packers complained about the slippery field. So that's one issue that the league will need to figure out before September. But, you're going to have a big crowd on hand, and it should go great. I know there was, concerns about the jersey colors, specifically the color green, and it was just kind of funny. How there was concerns about that, yet the NFL chose two teams that wear the color green. But shouldn't be a problem this time. And it wasn't, it's not like it was a problem last year, but I just wanted to bring that up because I know that was something that was talked about in the news. But, the Chargers, you're not going to have that problem. I guess, like I said, Broncos or Texans, don't have to worry about it. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think it's either going to be the Broncos or the Texans. That's what I'm leaning towards because of the information that was provided. You got some of the other teams, they're going to be hosting international games, so maybe you don't want to. Well, the Jaguars don't care. They'll do it they'll play in London every week if they wanted to. Well, and their opponents probably wouldn't be too thrilled about that. But, yeah, I think it could be one of those teams. Maybe the Chiefs, just because, for ratings. But I think that's what it's going to come down to. Maybe you do the Texans. And you have them square off, playoff rematch. Maybe you do that. So you know what? I'm going to say that. I am going to say that they will open up against the Houston Texans. Stroud versus Herbert. That's what the Brazil matchup is going to be. But we got a long way to go. The schedule release date is yet to be determined, but it's usually like within the first 2 weeks in May. So, then we'll break down, like we did last year, we'll break down all the primetime games and, team schedules, team predictions. Hopefully we do better in that next time than we did last year. Still got to go through that, but we will. We will go through everything, give overviews on team seasons. And also, we're going to be previewing, for baseball. I'll give you my predictions for, the divisions and individual teams, things like that. So that's all coming up. But I'm probably going to start all that next week. So, stay tuned for that. But let me know what you guys think, though, who the Chargers could potentially match up against in the Brazil game. And the other thing, too, is not only, were the field conditions bad, but the gameplay was definitely sloppy. There were a lot of turnovers in that game. It was high scoring, but the gameplay was sloppy. Gameplay was definitely sloppy, and it didn't, like I said, it did not help when Jordan Love got hurt. So hopefully we don't have any injuries in that game, like we did. And Saquon, maybe we'll have a big performance like we did with Saquon. Saquon had his Eagles coming out party in Brazil, and I just remember watching that game and immediately regretting not taking him in one of my leagues. And then Puka Nacua, who was the player I took over Saquon, ended up getting hurt that same week. And it also didn't help I was going up against my friend who drafted Saquon when I could have had him. But we will not make the same mistake next year. And, probably won't, because probably won't even have the opportunity to get Saquon. Unless I have a top 2 pick. But, probably not even going to get a chance to take him, because he's probably going to go, top 3 in pretty much every draft. So, but football may be over, but we still, we still get news like this that we'll talk about. And, the new league year starts on, I think, March 12th. So, then we get free agency and, trades. Stafford gets traded. Cooper Kupp is going to get traded. We definitely know that's going to happen. So, there'll be some news that come in at some point, and, and then we got the draft coming up. But, baseball is back today. So, going to try to, at least, have one eye on the Cubs Dodgers game, because Yamamoto is pitching today, so we'll see how he does. I know he didn't get off to the best start, last year, but hey, he settled in. He also got hurt, but settled in and pitched really well in the postseason, and he's a World Series champ. So, really excited that baseball is back. The NBA is back tonight, so going to be locked in on the Knicks tonight playing the Bulls, and March Madness around the corner. And so a lot to look forward to in the coming weeks. So, but I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video as well. And look out for the reposts of the segments, in case you missed anything, so you don't have to go through the entire live stream. Look out for my shorts that come out, on the topics that we went over today. Make sure to comment on those as well. Get a discussion going. That's always great. And it is almost it's almost the weekend. So as always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna